of Belial. I am here with Sander and Anton. We're going to be discussing various subjects today to assist you guys in your ascension. So with that being said, who would like to start us off?
Would you like to start this off, Paolo?
You're top screen, so you win.
So the subjects that I wanted to talk about today, I want to talk about some things that separate you from spirit or spiritual sickness, if you will. So the two things that I have learned that separate you from your spirit, one is alcoholic and drug addiction, and two would be extreme emotional states that are actually like, what's the words I'm looking for? That are like self-destructive, right? So with alcoholic and drug addiction, these progresses. One, you disconnect yourself from everything else around you, and then you disconnect from yourself. And then both of those things are very important in ritual and ceremonial magic. And this disease you that you have ever gone through like withdrawals from alcohol or from other substance abuse, you notice that even after the physical withdrawals are done, you still are suffering from the mental twists, right? And it stems because we have poisoned ourselves spiritually, right? I know a lot of practice and a lot of time goes into your practice, like strengthening your astral double or your light body, and using drugs and alcohol for an extended period of time actually puts holes in these, and it weakens this our astral bodies. I also know that after an extended period of time, they can actually become very, very tethered from yourself. I'm in recovery myself, right? And it took a profound spiritual experience, one, for me to even attempt to get sober. And that spiritual experience, like I longed for that for so long, and I started working on myself through my own recovery. And I started meditating more and more and more, try to like hold on to what I had experienced, right? And then I started practicing a lot. I strengthened my own spirituality, that the connections that I made with these entities and with these spirits grew stronger, and it grew more profound. And I started getting those same experiences that I had before that got me sober. Two is extreme emotional states of mind, things that are self-destructive. So like if you're suffering from like anxiety or depression, you're taking medication for this, I wouldn't worry too much about this because a lot of practitioners go through this. But I do know things like extreme selfishness, where you're tearing down everything else around you. Self-loathing, that can affect your magic. Anger, like extreme anger, where you're violently lashing out on anyone around you. If I were to sum this up, like anything that makes you lose control for alcohol and drugs, like you're not in control. You have severed your own willpower, which is detrimental to effective magic, right? And then two, with these extreme emotional states, if you don't know how to direct that, they start to direct you. I used to listen to this guy named Muji. He did guided meditations, and he said something in one of these meditations that like struck me to my core, and it was like, you're not your thoughts, you're the observer of your thoughts. You're allowed to feel these emotions, right? You're allowed to feel these feelings, but once they start to control your direction, then you aren't in control of yourself, right? And a while ago, one of the first things Lucifer told me was that mastery of self comes before mastery of all other things, right? So my sobriety, entities like Azazel work with, they know that my sobriety is important to me. They know how drugs and alcohol affect me, and they know that my staying sober and staying in fit spiritual condition, one is a testament to my own willpower, and two is they sort of take it as an offering, right? Like remaining sober helps them to remain by my side, right? And then with your own emotional states and your thoughts and stuff, that really comes with shadow work, right? Which is something that I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about, but I know that it does help you understand why you do the things that you do, right? Your control. And I'm not saying like if you drink or do drugs or anything that your magic's going to be severely affected, right? Like especially if you don't have like a severe problem. Once it's very deep inside of you, these things going on binges and stuff, then it starts to really fuck up your practice. And it also leaves you open to all sorts of other negative energies, negative entities, right? I go out in public and clubbing and stuff, and there are all sorts of fucking nasties that hang around all these drunk people. One, because they're getting freebies from them, really, at the end of the day. And if you're in active addiction or active alcoholism, you may find it very hard to draw up the necessary energy to direct into a spell or a ritual, or focus on those kinds of things. Experience with those two specific things, and I know that can help somebody else out there, or it can maybe trigger looking at one's own life and wondering, hey, how can I master myself a little bit better, right? Because it's ongoing. This is always going to be ongoing. Look at what you do good, and look what you can throw out, right? I have on those two topics.
I agree 100% with that. I myself have been around a few places, not particularly clubs, but sort of areas that are profane and use quite a few of those substances. And there are a lot of things that hang around there. It's like moths to a flame. They just wait. They like rub their hands together. It's like this, like flies waiting around almost. So I agree with that 100%. And I've actually experienced that. Yes, exactly. A feeding frenzy, 100%. And going along with what you said about binges and like real addiction, like cutting oneself off from the magic, it also cuts them off from their higher self as well. And when you're not in contact with your astral double, having it within you or your higher self, your magic's going to perform very poorly, of course.
Psychological aspects as well.
Absolutely.
Because that stuff tends to manifest physically as well, unfortunately, in the worst possible ways.
Well, there is a mental body and an emotional body as well as the astral body. It's all like sort of like a cake. It's it's layered somewhat. So I guess it's my go now. All right, sweet. So the topic I want to discuss is mainly Pazuzu's teachings. When I began my dedication with Pazuzu, it was to really increase my power with curses and to increase the speed of my curses. And there's an unknown aspect of the shadow work that Pazuzu was putting me through. You see, what I was doing with him wasn't working for quite a bit. And it took him having to explain that the motivation behind wanting to gain this power was incorrect. It shouldn't be about becoming powerful to exert that power over others. It should be about justice. Because with Pazuzu, he's very much about justice as much as he is dishing out baneful things. He's a protector, yet somewhat of a zero at the same time, with pestilence, plagues, droughts, disasters, all these sorts of things. So if anyone wants to approach Pazuzu, I suggest they approach him in the more in the name of justice and protection, and attacking things with his assistance that need to be attacked to protect others that are innocent, so to speak. His winds, because he's a demon king of the winds. He's very air elemental based. He presides over a certain Darthic wind that creates immense disaster, chaos, both within and without the enemy. Car crashes, mental anguish and destruction, self-harm, all these sorts of things. But he also has some authority over the winds of plague, same as Lilith and a few other ones. They don't just strictly have one thing for themselves. They all sort of share these energies and currents and have authority within them. Same with Azazel with the bottomless pit and Abaddon as the keeper of the abyss. They sort of share these authorities and roles, like a system, so to speak. And that's sort of leads into why he can create things like disease, sickness, pestilence, all these sorts of things. Now, with that comes the demons of the southwest winds. He mainly presides over the southwest winds. Now, these demons, they sort of have these big horns, but they're sort of jagged, like how a beetle has these things, but more on the head. And they've got these big sharp teeth, almost like shark-like, and they're very, how do I put it, wind-based, and they just sort of fly around the whole room and everything. These demons can be worked with for a number of things. They can jump into people, cause them to do whatever things, chaotic things, violent things, and they can also increase the speed of your curses that are happening. One thing that I noticed with Pazuzu is he increases your astral projection abilities, but the baneful side of it as well. As soon as I started working with him, I started attacking enemies in my dreams, and things would start happening to these people that I was attacking in dreams. So he definitely increases a lot of your astral-based attacks at the same time. And one other thing that he was teaching me that I want to share is utilizing all the ingredients you can curse, throwing everything you can at an enemy who's justified to be attacked. Utilizing organs, animal organs, and creating links, fetish links to the enemies and infecting these organs through that, therefore affecting the actual organs of the enemy, the heart, the liver, the brain especially. The brain is a very good one because the mind controls the body, the head. Wherever the head goes, the body goes. So you can attack internally more than externally, he was explaining, and this can cause more results than trying to create disaster around them. You're creating disaster from within them, so to speak. So I really wanted to share with everyone today.
Beautiful account, and it's worth mentioning that Pazuzu, just like Beelzebub, pretty much where Pazunia is almost like an extension of Daath, because when you end up in that world, you will see that it's very similar. You will see the destructive world, and you will see the point where he sits high above the world, and he oversees everything in the exact same way Belial will do in Daath, where there is the tower. And if you are to be going through these abyssal crossings, you will end up somehow through the destroyed world and then into the tower, which you are to climb up, which is as big as it's big enough to fit an entire country. And when you reach the top, you will find his throne, and that is where he is, and you will receive his teachings, and he will show you how endless the kingdom is, which is like full of fire and destruction that you can see, but somehow there is system. It's not all about chaos, but it's a chaotic world. So very big similarities on these parts. Now, when it comes to my part and account, I wanted to speak a little bit about the new things that we've been experimenting with, because we have been working with a plethora of newly channeled rituals and newly channeled empowerments and a ton of sigils and words of power of all sorts. One of the things that we recently worked upon heavily was making astral weapons and bestowing them upon the astral doubles. for it to be used. Mr. Paolo here, Del Prete, was the one who initiated this as an offering given by Azazel, as a blessing, if I may say, to be able to access the forge first and to have that knowledge and power to be able to grant us the weapons. Now, one thing we discovered, which is very interesting to say, alchemy is like chemistry, and the wrong chemicals combined can and will cause any kind of explosion or fires. We came to know that when you are using damned souls to forge into the weapons, like we've stated before, to make these astral weapons, what we didn't really know is that they can actually cause certain side effects on psychological levels, which will actually give you the attributes of that soul. So you should know what kind of a soul you should incorporate in yourself to accept when you are given these gifts. So if you are an overly emotional person or a heavily divinatory and empath, which is great for divination and channeling of all sorts, but at the same time, it is not adequate for you to receive, for example, an extremely heavy war empowerment of a Viking soldier or a gladiator who died in the Colosseum, because that soul is going to be too warlike and it will be in conflict with your empathetic side. So basically, it's going to cause negative psychological emotions, which you do not need. You may end up with some heightened anxiety, depression, insomnia, and what have you. Of course, there is a fix. These souls can be taken away from the weapon and a new one can be given to you. So it doesn't mean you will be left unarmed, or it doesn't mean that you are doomed. There's nothing that can be done to fix this. Like in alchemy, like in chemistry, as we said, anything can be added or subtracted and can be corrected according to the correct formula used. It's just that sometimes formulas are a little bit more complicated than usual. But of course, everybody learns through trial and error. That's why we have been using these amongst us to see what fits best. So now we know. Another thing that I personally have been experiencing heavily and I wanted to touch on upon, which the majority of the community heavily neglects, is shadow work. And there are many misconceptions about shadow work. People be thinking that shadow work is basically the cause of those random misfortunes in your life, and you gotta sit down and meditate because shadow work is all about you meditating upon yourself, and you're not going zen and bad things are happening, which is total bullshit. Usually you hear from armchair people who never go beyond doing a tarot reading, which most of the time is not even accurate to begin with. So the true essence of shadow work is that if you are a person who has had a lot of misfortune in life, you have gathered a lot of negative experiences, trauma in this life, and heavy chances are that you have acquired the exact same things in past lives. So you are literally carrying all that baggage like a big sack full of rocks around with you. So you will literally come to a point that I've stated in previous podcast. When you start initiating with the spirit, you will be experiencing the rise of your shadow self, which your darkness will start emerging and pouring out of you. So everything that happened in the past, good or bad, between you or someone else did something to you, you name it. We all have all kinds of misfortunes of many, many different ways, either from actions committed by us or from actions committed by others against us. This is all shadow that is piling up. It will grow within you, and it will literally start pouring out of your being and out of your aura and into the cosmos that you're living in, the physical world. Now, that will create the shadow which all astral weapons are made of. The armor of Belial is gifted by that to begin with. And everything will start to annoy you, and you will literally start feeling a very, very great rush of emotions, very negative. You will even get to the point if your shadow is strong, you will get to the point where it is going to be vibrating within you with extreme tension, like a megaphone. You will almost literally be able to hear it if your senses are heightened, going like, brrr. You can feel it in here, into your core. Anything between your solar plexus and heart chakra is going to be vibrating hard, and it's a lot of tension, which is not easy to deal with. And everything that happened in the past will start bugging you. So you have to work through this. For example, if you are ex-military and you've been having a lot of trauma because of reintegration into civilian life, then you will have to spend a few years being pretty much lost into this particular, let's call it a life casualty that occurred to you. You are trying to integrate back into the civilian world and it's not working. If you are strong-minded, you have managed to somehow heal yourself and avoid all kinds of other misconducts which may obstruct your life or even end it. Let's be honest. A lot of veterans do not survive their reintegration. It's like a werewolf transformation. Because life in the regiment is different. When you come back out, it all just explodes in you and the world changes for you. I mean, it's bad enough when you were in there, but when you come back out, it's a whole different ball game, which nobody, of course, warned you about. And you will have to go through shadow work, of course, to make amendments with the past and the present. And of course, the most difficult part that most people cannot accept is future. What do we do for the future? Because, I mean, the past is harmful and it eats us all up. The present is difficult to deal with because it's pretty much, shit coming back into civilian life and trying to make it, or being an ex-addict and trying to reintegrate and having that stigma which follows you everywhere. So what about the future? That's something nobody really thinks about. And that's what shadow work should do, to bring you through past trauma, which you heal from and come to terms with. Like, I personally would have to come to terms with understanding that I am now here and there is no going back. At this time and age that I am, it will never happen. What was and cannot really be again. So what do I do from now on? You gotta leave that energy, that situation where you were falling into the black hole, being lost and self-torturing and harming yourself through, let it be alcohol or substance abuse or violent outbursts. And then you go into the mode where you do something better. You get a better job, for example. You are much happier. You start being more outgoing. You're making friends. You meet women, what have you. Depends on your age, of course. Or you meet the one if you're a little bit older. Okay, we're all different. We go through different stages, different ages of life. And of course, the greatest part of healing is to go through the future. If you are at the point where you can literally wear one of, like, try to test this, I would say, as I did recently. When you're at the point where your shadow work is going well, take one of your military t-shirts or something that was connected to your past trauma and use it or wear it. Let's say, for example, if you have one of your t-shirts, wear it to your local gym and go with it. It's probably something you've been hiding away for years. You don't want to look at it. And you haven't touched it for years because it brings out all sorts of outbursts of all kinds. Okay, we don't need to go, of course, to each and every one of them. People react differently to this. Wear it, go to your local gym, train with it, and you will see that while you go through this particular healing, if your senses are open, you will look into the mirror and you will see your aura in white light growing to huge extents. And it will grow up to 2 meters away from your head. And then you are filled with white light. And not only that, you will have extremely huge amounts of energy and you will train for hours and not feel anything because you just went through the shadow work, which filled you with life once again, which is solar energy, which is an extremely heavy fuel for these particular, not only exercises, but for life itself. You're going to start looking younger, being happier, and more energetic. And that is the true essence of shadow work. It has nothing to do with meditating on something and going zen. It goes way deeper into aspects of your personal soul, your own darkness, and your life aspects and attributes as it is. Everything is connected as a whole. It's complicated.
Absolutely. This goes into a theory I got from Abaddon, not a theory, but gnosis. You see, you just treat your shadow as if it's a part of you or you're going for a walk. Like when you walk a dog, if you let the dog walk you, it's going to drag you wherever it wants to take you. But if you walk the dog, you're in control of it. You're walking your path and leading it where it needs to be led. And this can also go back to Jordan Peterson's theories of the shadow. Every man, woman, being has a monster within them that they must learn to control and harness as a weapon almost, or else it will control and consume them from within. So I agree with that all 100%.
The shadow is a part of you, and it is the part that people mostly avoid. You must find your light through your darkness. This is the best of ways that you could do, if you are adequate enough for this. Because most people avoid their shadow and try to live in a dream world. There is no such thing. You can do Sephirotic path workings and go into heaven. You will never find something that is cuddly and teddy bear like. It's all about war up there. They're very warlike. The only parts you will see them little teddy bears will be the very, very lower parts where, to my personal view, from what I have seen when I've been there, which is very rare, I haven't only been there 2 or 3 times. But there is a particular area in the first heaven where Jesus usually visits, where there is little children, souls of little children that either died from birth or died young, or very brand new souls who have never incarnated as human. And they're very, very cute. They're the cutest little souls you've ever seen. They're like little kids with white robes and they're running around. And there's plenty of trees and fruits there. And in my personal projection, when that happened, which was very short once, he was there hanging them fruits from a wooden basket, kind of like the same as the chair that I'm sitting. It's a nice place. And he had the shiniest beard and hair I've ever seen. I got jealous. I was like, man, that looks good. But yeah, he's nice. He's very kind, actually. I didn't get to speak to him, of course, because the projection kicked me out very fast after what I saw. But it was a very pleasant experience. Speaking of which, this brings us to another point which I would like to emphasize upon, which is related when it comes to judgment. I've spoken about this, of course, before, about judgment. Now, in one of my path workings with King Belial, one of his many aspects and many realms that he rules upon, I somehow ended up in what seemed to be black hills and mountains, and there were all sorts of shadows of men marching in the same direction. And I ended up being amongst them with the same way my double looks like, with the armor and everything, the black obsidian one, which is bigger than yours. They had armors of also, but of different ages. We're talking about medieval times, or I saw a lot of people from soldiers from Ottoman Empire, for example. All kinds of different ages. In history. They were all there together walking, and they look like black shadows. But when you get close to these men, the shadow takes shape, and you can see them. You can see if they have a mustache, how they look like, And I realized later through gnosis given, because I didn't exactly know what it was. You never really know initially what your projection was about. You will have to deal with the spirits that took you there, and you have to actually try and get some information about what's going on, because nothing is just handed. Most of projections are symbolic. So I actually was told that this was the so-called Valley of the Shadow of Death, where all the dead soldiers that are doomed roam upon. They just endlessly march until they are ready to be used, if conjured or whenever needed by the king, of course. He has necromantic attributes as well, Belial. He's not all about money and what have you. He has many, many different realms, many, many different attributes, and he has a necromantic aspect as well, a heavy one. And that's where all these reside. Now, you're going to say, what does judgment have to do with that? See, from all these souls that I've met, and from what we've discussed between us as well, we've seen different kinds of human souls who were human before. We're not talking about spirits. We're talking about people who were living beings like us. We have seen rich dukes who were nobles. We have seen people who even served under kings who did unforgivable things. But when it comes to these particular soldiers, what I've seen, one thing that was worth mentioning is we've seen crusaders, of course, who were thinking that they were doing something that was justified in the name of God, and they never had to think twice about what it is that they were doing to another human being, because they were, according to the doctrine that they received within their regiments and within their religious doctrines, it was simply justified. It was God's will to go out there and do it. The exact same thing applies for these Ottoman Empire soldiers that I have seen. They were doing it in the name of Allah, and they thought that it was the best thing to do because the Sultan gave the doctrine when you were a kid that you should go out there and do these acts. So we're talking about many cultures in history, and we're talking about people who thought that just because you do something in the name of the Creator, it can simply be forgiven or it's no big deal. But they do not take into consideration that the other person that you are harming is also a creature of the Creator himself. So what you are doing, regardless of whose name you think you're doing it at, is not justified. And the Creator, not only does he not allow you to do such acts, and he doesn't give you exception from this judgment, he has no problem sticking you where I was with all the other dudes that I saw, and you are never coming back out. So that is one big misconception that I've seen with my own eyes down there. Do not fall for the politics, thinking that just because it is in the name of the highest authority and Creator that you may just go out there and harm anybody, because who you are harming is also a creature of the exact same Creator. And you shouldn't be doing that under some kind of an excuse of a doctrine or vile necessity or need which you think you may have in you. The Creator will stick you down there straight away, relentlessly. You will never have an incarnation or a second chance once again, and you will never be given forgiveness. You'll stay down there with all the other dudes that I've seen. And I can tell you, they are countless and endless of them. It's like a sea. It's like an ocean of them. There's so many.
This goes into the Council of Death Gods as well. Every death curse that you throw goes through a form of judgment. All these gods of death have to sort of approve and petition this death curse to pass through. And if it's not passed through, it usually just gets thrown at the veil. And they usually suss you out as well. That goes into a lot of other people like Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer. He dabbled in the occult. And there is a drawing of his that he wanted to make altars out of the dead bodies that he killed. That's why he kept a lot of these bones and stuff. Now, he caught the attention of a few of the death gods, right? During his heinous acts against human innocents, people, children, well, underage people. And it's interesting that he died in the way that he first killed someone. So he killed someone with a weight. He smacked them with a weight. I think it was the barbell or a plate. I'm not sure, but it was a weight, and killed the fella. Now, he died in jail the exact same way. He was killed with a weight, and the guy that killed him was convinced that what he thought was God was telling him to kill Jeffrey Dahmer. This is a perfect example of the judgment of the death lords as well.
It happens.
Back into this sort of ties back into what Pazuzu was sort of telling you, Anton, that when we're doing curses, when we're working on that sort of any sort of baneful works, like it's not just about somebody. You really have to think about why it is you're doing the curse.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. It's all about your motives, your reasons.
Yeah, another thing that does happen, which is rare, but it does happen, If someone has gathered a lot of karma from past lives, with or without his knowledge, and let's say he has committed some unfair acts, which do not need to be vile or extreme or violent of nature, it could have been what I would call as normal social sins, like infidelity or unfair breakage of a marriage. All these things, which are considered wrong, although we are not preaching doctrine here, but there is a system for a reason, and we cannot deny it. Our views will never change the system. It is out there for a reason. In this world and the next, of course. So, agree with it or not, it is what it is. What we consider wrong is karma, and it will be gathered. It gathers up, literally, like what I described as the bag of black rocks that you carry with you. It gathers up and it becomes part of the shadow as well. And it's going to be a major reason why your dark or even banful operations don't work. Because karma is too much, it's gone too high. What you need to do to build that off is to start doing a little bit more light work and voluntarily, maybe helping others. You can do it through light or dark workings, it doesn't matter. Try and help others to decrease the karma, and you will have this balance then where literally the karma will come down, and then your let's call it reward of what you helped will come and balance here. So then your banful alchemy will be unlocked eventually, and then you'll be able to operate once again, because before that, due to karma blockages, you have been blocked. And that's the way to unblock yourself. That's a huge secret most won't even give.
Absolutely, it's accumulating debt. You got to pay that stuff off eventually. The good acts of kindness, helping others, healing others, all that sort of stuff. 100%.
So that would be all on my side. And another small thing I would like to say for people to watch out in the future would be that we will be releasing way more of these particular rituals that we are coming through. We are heavily engaged and working very, very hard upon what is to come. And not only will we be doing this for ourselves and the people in the group that we are teaching, which we continuously give advice and teachings for, but we will also be having operational services coming soon. They are not ready yet, of course, but they will be coming soon. And there will be a plethora of operations which will be able to help people who wish to ascend and get involved with alchemy, or simply need a little bit of extra boost and opportunity in their lives to get to where they need to be.
Absolutely.
That is a great spot to end this video. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and watch out for the next video. We're going to try to keep this on a regular schedule. Again, thanks, and until next time.
Rise and conquer.